I think we need to start first.
Okay.
You're started. You're good to go.
Good evening, folks. Welcome to the October 16th meeting of the ZBA. We have a lot going on tonight. The first of which is we need to go into executive session first thing. It should be fairly quick, but I'm going to have to ask you all to leave the room. We'll do our thing, and once we're done, we'll ask you all to come back in.
Motion. Yeah. I make a motion that we enter into executive session.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So welcome to the October 16th, 2025 meeting of the Scituate Zoning Board of Appeals. The Scituate Zoning Board of Appeals is committed to providing an environment of respect during meetings. We ask all members to interact in a polite manner, even when there is disagreement. We value the participation of our community and want all participants, including marginalized and minoritized communities, to feel welcomed and respected. We ask our committee members and all who participate to commit to these standards to support and respect our community. Again, thank you. We're going to jump right into our first application. First application of James and Sally Ritchie, 35 Beaver Dam Road. The applicant is requesting review and approval of proposed addition, an existing non-conforming single-family dwelling. The proposed project will remove existing garage on site, improve setbacks, reducing site non-conformance. Who's up? I need your name and address for the record.
My name's Jim Ritchie. This is my wife Sally Ritchie. We both live at 35 Beaver Dam Road. With me here is Dick Rockwood, who designed the original home and also designed the addition that we're proposing to provide.
Does he need exactly?
You need Dick.
If he speaks, he can give us his name and address.
Dick Rockwood from Rockwood Design in Marshfield, 1020 Plain Street. I live at 92 Grandview Ave in Marshfield.
Thanks. Tell us about the project.
Okay, so I know you guys have a long agenda, so what I think we should do is jump right into the three prints that I supplied. The first one being the actual survey of our lot as it stands right today. The second one would be the proposed addition. But the most important one, I think, to really understand it would be this one that Dick put together, and it's labeled in the corner, Rockwood Design, that shows the addition overlaid on the current garage that I have, that we're proposing to remove that garage. When we remove that garage, which is 18 feet off our front sight line, 18 inches, no, 18 feet, 18 feet off the front of our lot, and it will then be moved back to 31.5 feet. The side setback, which is right now at 3.34 feet, will be moved into 5.1 feet. And the back, which is currently, it's non-conforming, so it's 11.5 feet. We're gonna just keep that at 11.5 feet. Any questions on following that?
So there's two garages that are getting, or just one?
It's one garage, and if you look underneath where
There's a freestanding garage at the front corner of the
Yeah.
lot, and then a garage attached to the house. You're
That's
proposing to
correct.
tear down the freestanding garage
that's correct.
and then build an addition off of the house that includes a new garage and other spaces connected to the garage on either side of
That's correct.
it. The existing nonconformity is the freestanding garage is 3.34 feet from the property line.
That's correct.
Your proposed new addition is proposed to be 5.1 feet off property, off that same side property line. And you're proposing, it was the angles that got me, so that the structure itself is square, this is showing rooms that are angled, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
If you picture this freestanding garage, our driveway would come straight up. And you could, if you had a car, go right into that freestanding garage.
Right.
That's the entry to our property. What I'll do is that freestanding garage will be removed. The addition will be back further on our property. So it conforms with the 30 feet setback from the front property line. And then we will come in and there'll be two garages on an angle. And you can pull into either one of them.
So the rear setback was what I was getting at, so you're gonna have the rear setback, and that back corner will be the same as your closest setback of 11.5 feet.
Right. And we angled it slightly to keep that 11.5 feet.
But we'll start with
Thanks.
you.
There are a couple issues here that aren't necessarily zoning board issues, but I'll bring them up in any case. One is it appears you may be needing a stormwater permit. You are adding more than 25% impervious to the site. Yeah, that's not a zoning board issue. The other is, what's the use of this new space besides garage?
We're gonna make this a 2-story. The upper story will be a 1-bedroom. We're gonna eliminate a bedroom in the house and have this as a 1-bedroom ADU. We classified it as ADU because it had a kitchen, but we're gonna use it for ourselves. It's nothing that we plan on renting out or using in any other way. We're just planning for the future to have single floor living if we need it in the future.
Yeah, the reason I'm asking that is we're still in the throes of getting the Attorney General's input on our new ADU bylaw, which was voted at the last town meeting. I don't think that's going to affect this project. There's some wording in it on setbacks that was originally proposed by the town, which would require ADUs to meet standard setbacks when they were built, which this doesn't, but it appears that the Attorney General will strike that down. So it's a little bit of an influx situation is all I really can say and all I really want to say in terms of setbacks and ADUs. That's really all. I do think the stormwater is something that needs to be done. So.
We understand we need a stormwater engineering evaluation.
Board, Keith. Greg. Matt?
No questions.
Justin? Same thought of mine, as Bob, I had, knowing that this is an ADU. Right now, our bylaw says it's supposed to meet setbacks. Whether or not that gets struck down, I don't know. Our current bylaw says an ADU has to meet all setbacks. As far as tearing down the old garage, the freestanding garage, using that setback as a pre-existing nonconformity for the addition. They go stretch. How? You thinking?
Tricky thing we run into, and I understand what Bob's saying, but our bylaws. Our bylaw,
Right.
and that's what we have to go by, right?
It's just, require setbacks or,
ADU is required to meet all zoning setbacks.
so in this case.
It has to meet the I3, so the eight feet side setback. Yeah.
Standard 20
And
foot.
24 rear.
But as far as the existing 11.5, will you be able to maintain that across, or is that a separate discussion? Is that specifically?
Well, it depends what I get, what it's classified, as, right? If it's just a straight addition,
Yes.
so long as it's no more non-conforming, then fine. It's an ADU,
It needs to be.
that's the difference.
Am I correct in saying that because we want to put another kitchen, we have to go by the ADU laws? That's what, you know, if I chose not to put a kitchen in it, would it then just be a traditional addition that would comply?
If it doesn't meet the definition of ADU, a standalone living unit with a kitchen, sleeping, eating, and living, sleeping, and eating space. Doesn't meet the definition of an ADU, then it's not an ADU. It will just be an addition. That's the crux. You could, so.
You're mixing and matching issue. You still, because you're using the non-conformity of the freestanding garage as.
Well, I think that's topic number two.
But I guess my point, that would still be a relevant concern. So for
I
parking
think it
units.
is.
Yeah.
So as far as the ADU concept is concerned, you could redo your drawings and say, and eliminate the kitchen, say, we're not doing an ADU, just an addition.
Did it say that anywhere though? No,
What?
I think he just conversationally mentioned, I think the drawings are okay, but just, they don't mention proposed addition, not proposed ADU.
Right.
I think he just conversationally brought up that it was to be an ADU, so I think.
I think it's on the drawings and planning and, you know,
My desire is to put a kitchen.
If a kitchen is proposed in addition, but you know, all the pipe work goes in, all the plumbing's in, but no kitchen is actually installed, meaning there is no stove.
it's an ADU.
It's an ADU.
It's still an ADU.
Yeah.
You
Change
can't be wrong for that in any way. Let me just go back to where we are with the Attorney General, however. Until the Attorney General approves our bylaw, which is not happening yet, it's a draft bylaw. So I honestly don't know what that means in terms of processing. Right now, the paper that I read this morning said that the Attorney General's not allowing us to keep the language in that would make an ADU conform to all setback requirements for the district it's in. The language that AG wants us to substitute says it must conform to the minimum setback for a main dwelling or main building or an accessory structure in the zone in which it's located. So that would allow you, bottom line is that would allow you an 8-foot setback here. Because that's the minimum allowable in any building in this. So that's what they're at. They're not, it's, for this project, it's kind of a moot point because you're within the 8 feet anyway, but if you were looking at a freestanding.
If you were looking at a
ADU
freestanding,
someplace on a lot, the
Yeah.
setback where it might want to be under the original zoning, 15 feet from the side and say 20 feet from the rear. Or 30 feet from the rear, and another one is you could cut those both down to 8 feet, fitting where the AG seems. I'm not sure that's relevant.
Right, yeah.
But that's where we are.
So back to thoughts from the board. Matt?
Well, it's not codified fully yet, and the language remains unclear with the AG's office. How can we apply that bylaw?
We can't, I think we just have to use the bylaw that we have.
In general, once it passes a town meeting, it's the bylaw, I think this ADU in particular, I think the AG is still figuring out what they're doing. I think in general, when it passes a town meeting,
It has to be, but
Yeah.
they're, right,
then we can't just pass.
any bylaw.
Yeah, they have to. Usually they do, but
So where the language is unclear, and we're going back and forth with the AG's office, or the town's going back and forth with the AG's office, I should say, about that, I think it's, we can't necessarily apply to a decision today. Because I would not feel comfortable to a decision today until it's fully codified, because the ADU law started with guidance from the Attorney General's office. It's not as if it's a bylaw that came so just to challenge.
I think where we're at is, we're not clear enough on where the bylaw stands at this point. That might be a sit back, wait and see where this goes. Like I said, the bylaw that we passed at town meeting has to meet the setbacks. When it goes to the AG, they say, maybe not. So there's no clarity here. If you wanted to request a continuance to possibly the next meeting, we can work on getting clarity from the AG with the planning department and whatnot, and kind of clear up where we're going with this.
Do we think that guidance is imminent? Do we think that feedback or approval from the Attorney General's office is necessary?
I think we have the feedback, it's a question of analyzing it and seeing how it works with our existing bylaw language and what we as a town wants to really accomplish. We have the language.
Right.
Okay, so for the gate, there would still be a step by which they have to formally approve the finalize the for it before.
they don't need, they don't need. Then they don't need, they don't
You're not here to get approval.
they're better off waiting.
You want to get approval.
I mean,
So,
wait for the government.
I guess my question is,
But right now, we gotta go
as
out.
far as,
That's what I mean.
we're not here to get the approval on the ADU, that might be once, and by that time, the Attorney General will make his ruling. And then I'll get that approved by planning. But when you're just looking at the footprint, the design that currently is been done,
That is another way to look at it.
It's hard.
No, I
there are,
understand, because there's no.
so, there is a, yeah, and, and on the one hand, we look at the footprint, do you meet the zoning setbacks? setbacks, yes. The other part of the zoning bylaw is that an ADU has to meet setbacks, so if you've said, I wanna create an ADU, I wanna create an apartment with a kitchen, a sleeping area, and a living room, then that meets the definition of ADU, you have to meet the setbacks that are in our bylaw. If you, again, if you're doing an addition with no kitchen, no, no rough-in for a kitchen, none of that, then it's just an addition. And it, falls under our 810, section 810, that, pre-existing non-conforming and setbacks would be fine. Or once that ADU component comes in,
I don't see a reference in any of the paperwork submitted. So if we were to move forward, it's just
We could approve theoretically with the
a proposed
application.
addition, or not a proposed ADU, but a proposed addition.
Right, we're not approving an ADU.
you're not approving an ADU,
Correct.
we're approving a footprint.
Is that something you would?
That's not gonna help me. We
No.
don't wanna build basically an ADU.
Right,
To get approval on something, but I don't have an
Yeah.
intention to build.
Right, when you go in and say, hey, I wanna put a kitchen in this
You're
addition,
not
I
gonna
got
get
it.
anything, you're
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
May I ask you if I had an existing non-conforming house?
I'm not gonna go down that road.
All right, well, I go down every
That's
road I
the-
can, I
It's
mean, that's how I.
it's one of the biggest gray areas in the ADU law right now, and Bob's been involved with this. It's one of the biggest gray areas right now. Yes, no, maybe.
We open up for public comment. Before we do anything.
So I think where we are right now is that by our current bylaw, the ADU would have to meet all setbacks, which would require 8 feet. Now,
Also require the 20 feet from the back, or could I stay at the 11?
No, well, for the ADU,
It would have to be.
yes.
No,
Yeah,
no,
well, I take it back. Our current bylaw, keep going back and forth. I believe that the AG's language that will be inserted in our current bylaw, when it is inserted, will allow an 8-foot rear yard setback.
right,
yes.
And side yard.
I think the suggestion being made here is it's a wait and see. If you want to move forward with building the unit with a kitchen in it, wait until this gets settled. You can request a continuance. And we can put it on for next month, we can wait a
And
couple
then,
months.
and then put it on for next month, if it's still not there, make a request for a
Yeah.
continuance again, we're not gonna make it come in. We'll keep
You
moving
can-
it until we get clarity.
Right.
Again, it looks like a beautiful
Right.
project, we just,
So once you get the clarity, and let's say that you can keep the 11'5" setback that we proposed. Can I also keep the 5'1", moving the 3 feet to 5.1, or do I have to go to 8 feet?
With the new language that's being proposed by the AG's office, pre-existing non-conforming would still fall into that category.
I think we'd have to, I don't think you've seen what they're gonna approve.
But the existing, but the suggested language, if it's adopted into the town bylaws, would allow for that.
Allow for the 5.1?
I honestly, I
It's
think
my
we hope it
understanding
does.
of what,
We would love to approve.
I know.
It's just, I don't think legally,
Oh, we are.
by our bylaw,
Right.
So we'll put it off till next month, and we'll see where we're at.
yeah, and then if you don't have any, we don't have any clarity, we can continue to.
Call Eric or Bob or whatnot, check in, a week before the meeting, see kind of, hey, do we have any clarity on this yet?
that's the proposal, that doesn't make it any immediate.
Please, because
Which the proposal that does not clearly makes fall outside of the AG character.
The thing is,
I know, so he's gotta make that
saying he
decision.
wants to do this, so even if he does it later, it's gonna, we'll look at it that way.
Yeah.
You're approved for the blueprint.
Question for Jay is,
Um, Bob, did you have a question?
Through you, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, Bob, go ahead.
Mr. Rockwood.
Yeah.
We're talking potentially 3 feet along the left-hand property line.
Yes.
That is gonna be an issue. I think it will.
Yeah.
From what I've read and what I think is going to happen.
The 5 feet, the 3
Well,
foot difference, yeah.
I'm
Don't
talking about the
Go to
8 foot required as
Right.
opposed to 5 feet desired.
It's,
Is there any easy way your plan can be redeveloped to achieve that 8 feet?
well, I would have designed it to 8 feet if it fit. It's such a tight lot that the turn radius of a car, I would have to move the whole thing over 3 feet. I would have to remove part of my walkway, some trees. And I know my septic system runs out of the house in that general area, so that's why I didn't make it 8 feet, and I just went with a 5'1" to squeeze it all in.
The 5'1" is more, for fire code. On the basis of accepting the fact that we're taking down the old garage and asking to use that. Because of the angles and just what we wanted to get out of the structure.
So yeah, I'm at the point right now that I did design most of this already. And I said, well, why don't you stop here to your zoning board? So now we're looking at, I have to go ahead and complete the framing prints, or do I just sit
wait
tight
everything.
on everything?
I can't tell you what to do, but it sounds like I would wait. I'm not comfortable approving this, given the state of our bylaw right now. I haven't seen what Bob has seen as far as what the attorney, the AG has said recently. I would rather clear this up so we have a solid move forward. Where
I have a feeling we'll be in the exact same situation if I come back to you after the AG comes out, I'm still trying to do that 5.1 feet. That's sort of an answer I'm looking for at this point, because then I can't. fit
I
it
think,
in.
well, I think like Bob said, I think, if this is going to be an ADU, if this is gonna be an ADU, and right now, the minimum setback for any building in this area is 8 feet. You would need at least 8 feet. You have to meet at least that setback.
Even when I'm taking a building that's 3 feet away, and doesn't meet the front side. Yeah. Yeah,
No, my feeling is if you would get approval for the non-conforming, you just don't build it yet, so you know where you stand. If it works, keep moving. If not, you make the adjustment
Or
and pull in the 8 feet. I mean, you have time to make that decision. You've come this far. If you were gonna approve it as just an addition, the non-conforming footprint, then at least you know where you stand with that. Now you can wait for the ADU rule. That's how I would look at it. More of a divide and conquer. And
There's,
trying to package something that we don't even know yet is the problem. That's how I would look at it. You can always come back and say, you know what, this is the rule, we want the ADU, but that's how I.
look back period. If he came to you 6 months from now and said, hey, I'm gonna put an ADU in this addition that I just built 6 months ago, we have a look back period for that.
Well, ADUs still have to go through the planning office for site plan approval and review. Whether or not that would go through, I don't know.
Till we get approved of the footprint, and then you go to the planning board, and you really shouldn't go to them until they know the regulations. Because they're the ones that approve the ADU, am I correct? Every town's different.
Planning board approves the ADU.
Right.
Yeah,
So if we got the approval for this, we still have to go to the planning board for the ADU.
you're right.
Correct.
So, once again, divide and conquer, we at least know where we stand. We can always come back again. So if we get approved for the 5.1 feet, which I do for fire rates, and then it turns out that we're gonna make it 8 feet, do we have to come back, maybe a minor modification to what you approved, or?
I think if it met all setbacks.
Yeah, at that point, once.
It meets all the setbacks.
Yeah, I don't think. it would-
The reason we'd be here is the back is non-conforming.
We could probably just modify this.
That's what I'm saying, as a modified request for something you already approved.
Yeah.
I would, if you were,
Again, not having you before us, but generally, I think that probably makes sense.
that's how I would approach it, and you get the approval for the footprint, and then we can figure out what you want.
Based on a proposed addition.
Because nobody seems to be having a negative view on the 5 point, because of giving up that whole garage area. And then at least you know where that is.
Well, at least you could have. a
Worst
garage.
case, it would be an addition. Yeah,
Worst case.
keeping the footprint you approve, we just don't put a kitchen.
Right.
And maybe in a month, you're not gonna build it next week. You get approved, it's gonna take time, you gotta go to the planning board, you gotta get pricing and other things, so I think at that time you might know what to do and whether we come back, but at least you know you could have the 5.1. Because if we try to move it over the 3 feet, it just, everything gets jammed up and it doesn't work.
So I guess the question is, do you guys want us to move forward with approval of the application as is? No ADU component, just for the addition?
That's my recommendation. Okay, that's
All right, so. I'll make a motion to close public comments. All right. We haven't had public comments yet. Is there anybody in the audience that has any questions? Anything to say on the application for 35 Beaver Dam Road? Anybody online?
Mr. Karsha, you have no virtual hands raised.
Thank you. Nobody in the audience? Anything else from the board? Anything else from Bob? I'll make a motion to close public comment. All in favor? Aye. Make a motion?
Yeah, I'll make a motion on the first application of James and Sally Ritchie of 35 Beaver Dam Road, who seeks approval of a proposed addition of an existing non-conforming single-family dwelling. Per the plan of McGrath Land Surveying dated August 16th, 2025. And the board find that such addition does not create any new non-conformities, and to the extent that intensifies the existing non-conformities. Such intensification is not substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? No? Passes unanimously.
great. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you for your time. Good luck.
Thank you. Second application, James Kingston, 28 Vinyl Ave, Scituate, Mass. The applicant requests review and approval of a raise and rebuild of a new dwelling, where the ZBA finding is that the proposed alteration is not substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood than the existing non-conforming structure. The applicant is not proposing any new non-conformities, and is not proposing to extend any existing non-conformities. Who is here for 28 Vinyl Ave?
Matt Mitchell from Ornberger, DeLisi, and Harrison, Scituate, on behalf of the applicant, James Kingston, who I believe is also on the line. Excuse me. And can you see the plan? I've screen shared it on the screen.
We can see the plan. You were cut out at the very beginning. What's your name?
Matt Mitchell.
Very good, thank you.
So,
Go ahead.
Mr. Kingston's entered into a contract to purchase property at 24 Vinyl Road. It's in an R2 zoning district, and it's non-conforming in two different ways. One, lot area, it's 19,820 square feet in a 20,000 district, and its width is 105 feet in a 125-foot district. The dwelling that you see on the plan is conforms with all the dimensional setback requirements. And what we're proposing to do is essentially to raise and reconstruct, staying within the same envelope, the same footprint of the house that's there right now.
Uh,
Matt, do you have, I see a plot plan, do you have any other plans, or is it just the one plot plan from Point Plan Survey?
This is the plot plan that was submitted with the application by Jeff DeLisi. I mean, it does show the frontage and all of the setbacks. I'm not sure if you would like to see anything else.
Doesn't say that.
It's the same footprint, correct?
Same footprint.
it's the same footprint. Yeah.
Usually we have-
need a site plan?
No.
Square footage, not a whole increase, but that's not.
So they're adding floors is what they're doing.
Yeah. We're here for this.
Alright, so any questions from the board?
No.
We've kind of got this now, that's the same footprint, you're adding a second floor, I believe is what the proposal was.
Yeah, that's correct. If you look at the zoning chart in the application, we're going from 16 feet to the allowed 35.
Very good. Anybody in the audience? In the back, name and address for the record?
Yes, Kenaway, 8 Vinyl there's a group from Vinyl Ave, to Butters, and then also sort of down the street. We have some concerns about, just the project in general, not necessarily the plans, but, I have some things here.
You wanna come up? Yes.
Our concern is that Jenkins Elementary School is on the same street on Vinyl Avenue and has a drop off and pickup on Vinyl Ave, becomes a marked one way from 08 to 10 o'clock a.m. and then 2 to 4 p.m. Monday through Friday during school. Westbound travel towards Stockbridge in both lanes, and the car line forms at the same side that house is on. The south lane becomes a vehicle and passing, like vehicle and walking lane to pass the stationary car lane. At both of those times, but particularly in the afternoon, the car line extends at least as far as 28 Vinyl and beyond. And it sits longer in the afternoon, like usually at least a half an hour in that lane. It extends further in cold and inclement weather. In the morning, the cars travel faster. It flows better, but the cars they do travel faster in the morning because it's easy to get there on time. This pattern was established 11 years ago to alleviate traffic burden on First Parish Road. And in general, it's a better alternative, but the Vinyl Ave being a small neighborhood road, it's 2 feet smaller than a standard road width. So that being said, it reasonably accommodates existing volume of vehicles and walkers when things are going smoothly. But as you can imagine, the addition of just about any other factor can and does turn the situation from, at best, a twice daily annoyance to explicitly dangerous. These other factors include speed, wrong-way drivers, vehicles parked in the passing and walking lane, snow, inclement weather, and large commercial vehicles like garbage trucks, flatbeds, delivery trucks during those times. Since the change was first implemented, neighbors, school officials, school council, parent groups have worked with DPW, police, traffic rules and regulations to find safe solutions for the kids to walk to school, surrounding the school, but particularly on Vinyl Ave. We've been working with Mass DOT, Safe Routes to School, for many years and are currently partnering with the Scituate Bike Committee to apply for the Mass DOT Signs and Lands grant funding, which would give us money for additional signage and things like crosswalks. It's highly likely that we will be awarded that, which will require a transportation impact assessment expected on other streets, but especially on Vinyl Ave. And given the minimal front setback and narrow side yards at 28 Vinyl, there's limited room for dumpsters, equipment, materials, and which will cause contractors and work vehicles to have to park in the street. The particular location of the house is right at the beginning of the S curve, so there's a map here, and you've got the little diagrams. And which speed and visibility make it hard to pass the car line already. So if there's vehicles and things in the street, then that car line will get pushed into the passing and walking lane. The passing lane allows through traffic and student walkers. So the timing of the project also being in the winter months, but will complicate things further. Another issue that is very predictable is contractors and delivery drivers that are not familiar with the one-way, coming the wrong way, and just coming at times, usually deliveries in the morning. They come on flatbed trucks with forklifts and other things like that, moving in and out of the roadway. It's already an issue. These are things that happen weekly. They just don't happen for such a long duration. There's not been a project this size on Vinyl Ave ever. So these are things that they're very predictable. It'll create highly congested, hazardous conditions that will impede school, arrival and dismissal operations, block through traffic and access for residents and workers to their properties, as well as jeopardize the ability of students and families to walk to and from school safely. This also has the potential, what happens is that when there's roadblocks or other issues, car drivers will get tired of that, and they'll start to go around the other way into the wrong way, which is where the outflow of traffic from the school and has a much higher volume of walkers and bikers at that end of Vinyl Ave. So all of these scenarios happen all the time. But we anticipate that this will exacerbate all of that.
So I understand your concern. As far as the ability of this board to mitigate any of that, they meet the zoning requirement, they're allowed to make it. That is the extent of our authority. When a building permit is issued, there are conditions on that building permit about how they have to keep their, the work on the property and things like that. If there are issues during construction, you can call the building department, you can call the police department, if there are traffic issues. I don't know, obviously we can't say, you can't do this project because it'll cause a problem. It's not in our purview, and it's really not something I don't think, would go anywhere, with any discussion. But please know that you can call the building department or the police department, if these things do occur. Anybody else on the board and anything?
I would just encourage you to also, I don't know if you've spoken with the attorney, with Matt and his team at all, but, have this similar discussion with the homeowner.
Of course, yeah. Are there special conditions that we can work out to be set on the permit as a condition of the permit itself so that they can have some kind of enforcement mechanism?
I don't know what conditions, there are no conditions that we could establish, no zoning type conditions.
As far as like parking for work vehicles and things like that.
I think if they can legally park, they can legally park. That's kind of with the police department. If they're obstructing a road, we can tell them they can't do something that otherwise they'd be walkable.
Yeah, in a situation like this, the best resource is day one when the contractor shows up, go over and shake his hand and say, hey, here's our concerns.
Yeah.
Work with these guys on site, you know, even bypass Matt, work with the guys that are on site, go down and talk to them, say, hey. And let the GC know that, you know, this is a concern. They're more often, you know, they have to do more business in town, they want to do more business in town.
Sure, yeah, we just, you know, there's a lot of times that there's delivery drivers and other things that are from out of town,
Yeah.
that aren't familiar with this, you know, and we wanna make sure that they're like informing them, you know, this is a serious, you know, we
I
have.
mean, there's a big do not enter sign at that, and we can't tell them to break the law, or not, don't break the law, right? Again, we wish, as you noted, not even this project, other people do anything.
Right, yeah.
So again, we can tell them don't, but we can't make a condition that, you know, if a random road delivery driver doesn't go down, you know, they probably can, you know, quickly call Scituate PD, they probably write that person a ticket, they're going the wrong way. Again, it's Jenkins, when the kids are getting there, they'll probably be pretty quick to respond if there's a wrong-way truck coming there like that.
The second thing is that, we were wondering, also if there was, another type of permit that was issued that would have allowed them to start working. That they have, that they've already started demolition on the garage and excavation of the foundation.
They have a permit to do that.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else from the audience? Anybody online?
No virtual hands raised.
We'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion on the second application of James Kingston of 28 Vinyl Ave, Scituate, who requests approval for a raise and rebuild of a new dwelling, where the ZBA finding is that the proposed alteration is not substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood than the existing non-conforming structure or use. Per the plan of White Land Surveying, dated June 7th, 2025, that the board find that such raise and rebuild does not create any new nonconformities to the extent that it intensifies any existing nonconformities, such intensification is not substantially more detrimental.
Do I have a second?
Thanks.
All in favor?
Aye.
Passed unanimously.
Matt, you gonna write that one?
Yeah, we'll write it for you.
Thank you, Matt.
Thanks very much.
On our third application, James and Nancy Pinelli, 46 Atlantic Drive, Hummerock. The applicant requests a special permit to raise a pre-existing non-conforming single-family dwelling and construct a new single-family dwelling with a reduction of non-conformity on a pre-existing non-conforming lot, which matches the character of the neighborhood. Do I have somebody here for 46 Atlantic Drive? Michael D. Benedetto?
Raising this.
Eric, do you do that yourself?
I can ask you.
Yep, nope, I got it. Michael should be good.
Hello, thank you. I can share my screen if it's loud, if it's helpful.
Sure.
Okay, should be shared now. So my name is Michael DiBenedetto, working for Grady Consulting. I'm representing the client James and Nancy Benelli for 46 Atlantic Drive. And the site is currently occupied by a single-family residential dwelling and is proposed to be occupied by the same allowed use in the R3 zoning district. The existing dwelling is non-conforming in front setback requirements, and the applicant proposes to raise the existing dwelling and construct a new single-family dwelling. The proposed dwelling reduces the non-conformity of the front setback and conforms to all other site setback requirements. The proposed dwelling would match the existing non-conforming use of the neighborhood. I have a front setback existing of 4.7, and we'll be reducing that to a proposed 10.5. But around the rest of the site, there will be either matching the existing or staying within the required zoning setbacks. Leave it open to the board for question and concerns.
Board questions?
I have
This looks like a regular raise and rebuild within the existing setbacks. Bob, anything?
No.
Nothing from Bob. Anything from the audience in the room? Anybody online have any comment on 46 Atlantic Drive?
We have no virtual hands raised.
So he's reducing the front yard nonconformity, he's. Front yard. Existing at 4.7, going to 10.5. Side yard, he's got maintaining the 12 on one side. He's way up.
Just the front.
Yeah. Very good. I'll entertain a motion.
Right, I make a motion on the third application of James and Nancy Benelli, 46 Atlantic Drive, Humrock, requesting special permit to raise, rebuild a pre-existing non-conforming single-family dwelling, reduction of the non-conformity, pre-existing non-conforming lot. Per the plan of Grady Consulting dated August 29, 2025, the board finds that such raise and rebuild does not create any new non-conformities. To the extent that it intensifies any existing non-conformities, such intensification is not substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood.
For a second,
Second.
all in favor? Aye. Passes unanimously. Thank you, Michael.
Thank you. Have a great night, gentlemen.
You too. Eric, at the end of the meeting, we'll go through who's writing on. Moving on to our fourth application, Elizabeth and Eliza White, 6 Roberts Drive, Scituate. Applicant requests review and approval to remove an existing mudroom and replace with a new mudroom. With that above, the applicant seeks a finding to allow the proposed project, finding believe that the elevation Johnson facing more detrimental than the existing non-conforming structure or use. And we have people on the table, name and address for the record.
Good evening, I'm Jim Graff, land surveyor, 1734 Commercial Street in Wayne, Mass. And with me, I have Elizabeth White, the homeowner at 6 Roberts. And we have our contractor, Joseph McCabe.
Tell us about the project.
So, my client looks to add a mudroom to the front right portion of the building and a covered porch above it. The covered porch will fall within the front yard setback. The proposed distance is 18.5 feet, which is a little bit less than the current setback of 16.66 feet on the existing porch that's there. It meets the side setbacks, and the proposed addition is roughly square footage wise on the grounds. It's what do we figure, a little bit less, about 90 square feet in total for the addition of the mudroom. And they want to sort of continue the front overhead porch to match what's already existing there. This is an old farmhouse. Sure.
Okay. So I think what I would love to share with you is just how my husband and I take our responsibility as stewards of this property very seriously. This property was the first house built on First Cliff. It was built in 1854. And we believe its heritage is important to be preserved and celebrated. So what we are trying to do is kind of undo kind of a funky roof that was a bad addition somewhere in its 117 or 171 year history, and return it back to the original roof lines and trim details. Our backyard neighbor had shared a photo with us when the only two houses that existed out there were our house and theirs, and there was an apple orchard. So we are trying to be very responsible in terms of how we kind of treat the front of this house. We are keeping the existing farmer's porch as it is, and all we're trying to do is tie together the existing with the side porch that also is existing, through this front door mudroom, piece that we're trying to put on.
I'll admit, I had to look at the photos before I could figure out what was going on.
Yeah, no, I get it.
Do I have any questions from the board? No. Any comments, questions from Bob?
No?
Thoughts and gentlemen? No. Anybody in the audience, any comments or questions about number 6, Roberts Drive? Is there anybody online for 6 Roberts Drive?
Mr. Corsi, we have no one online.
Thank you.
I make an application on, or make a motion on the fourth application of Elizabeth and Elijah White of 6 Roberts Drive, Scituate, who request approval to remove an existing mudroom and replace with a new mudroom with bath above per the plan of McGrath Orange Land Survey dated August 28th, 2025, and the board find that such addition does not create new nonconformities to the extent that it intensifies an existing nonconformity. Such intensification is not substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
That's unanimous. Thank you very much. Good luck.
Thank you.
On our 5th application, Andrea Ramsey, 6 Elaine Court. Applicant requests a special permit finding to allow the raise and reconstruct of a single-family home. Who do I have on 6 Elaine Court? Online, raise your hand. Nobody from Jeff's office. All gone.
I believe we have Mr. Gunn. Mr. Gunn, you should be able to speak.
Hello there. Sorry about that. Give me a moment and I'll share my screen.
Good.
All right, so just for the record, my name is Paul Gunn. I'm a project engineer with Morse Engineering. I am here tonight to represent Andrea Ramsey for the special permit finding in accordance with Mass General Laws, Chapter 48, Section 6, and the Scituate Zoning Bylaw, Section 810.2. The property in question is 6 Elaine Court, which is located in the R2 zoning district. According to assessor's record, the existing dwelling was constructed in 1960 and has a gross floor area of approximately 2,920 square feet. The existing nonconformities include the property's lot frontage, which is 53.6, whereas 100 feet is required, and the existing left side yard setback, which is 12.7 feet, whereas 15 feet is required. The applicant is proposing to raise the existing dwelling and construct a new single-family home. The proposed home would comply with all setback requirements, eliminating one of the nonconformities by correcting the left side yard setback. We aren't proposing any changes to the existing frontage, and the proposed dwelling has a gross floor area of 5,060 square feet, which is an approximate increase of 73%. I believe that's all I have. I'll turn it back to the board. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Let's see. Not creating any new existing, the only reason is the massive increase in square footage.
It's a new production too, right?
It's a raise and reconstruction, yeah, so, that, see the shadow line, that's,
Yeah.
That's the existing.
Not enough frontage.
Right. This was before 50-foot frontage lots, I thought this was made in 1961. Yeah. Any questions from the board? Anybody in the audience on 6 Lane Court? Anybody online? Questions?
Mr. Karshi, we have no one online.
Thank you, sir. Bob?
Really, no comments during the side yard setback and not, we're gonna do about the frontage.
All right, I make a motion on the 5th application of Andrea Ramsey of 6 Lane Court, who requests a special permit finding for CBL section 810.2 to allow the raise and reconstruction of a single family home per the plan of Morse Engineering dated September 18, 2025. The board finds that such raise and rebuild does not create any new nonconformities to the extent that it intensifies any existing nonconformities. Such intensification is not substantially more detrimental to the.
Do I have a second? Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Passes unanimously. Mr. Gunn, thank you.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
You too. Sixth application, Johnson Watkins, 44 Country Club Circle. The applicant proposes a raise and rebuild of an existing house, whereas the garage does not conform with the current side yard setback requirements. It requests a new garage be built with the same nonconformity as the existing structure. Who do I have for 44 Country Club Circle? Name and address, correct.
Jamie Kelleher with Axiom Architects, 2048 Washington Street, Hanover. And we're the architect on the project, and I'll be also presenting the site plan by Fantastic Survey Engineering, engineer David Gray. And what we are looking to do with project is a tear down, rebuild of the existing house. The new proposed footprint would meet all of the setback requirements other than the garage on the right side of the property, which is currently non-conforming. So we have a existing garage at 7.6, and the proposed garage we're pushing to 8.1. It's also pushed back from the front of the existing garage, but we're continuing further back on the property by about 8 feet from where the current garage is.
So the only non-conformity is gonna be the side yard setback at 8.1, which is an improvement over the 7.3.
That's correct.
Everything else conforms. I know you guys are in a flood zone, you're gonna be going to conservation and all that stuff.
Correct.
Any questions from the board? Comments from Bob?
No?
Anybody in the audience? Anybody online?
Nobody online.
Moving forward.
All right, I make a motion on the 6th application of Dr. Watkins of 44 Country Club Circle, who seeks to raise and rebuild an existing house whereas the garage on with the current side yard setback requirements, request the new garage be built same non-conforming as existing structure per the plan of the Fantastic Survey Engineering dated July 22, 2025, and such raise and rebuild does not create new nonconformities and to the extent that it intensifies any existing nonconformities. Such intensification is not substantially more detrimental to the.
Do I have a second? Second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Seeing none, passes unanimously. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Moving on to our 7th application, Jeffrey and Emma Lawson, 20 Ridge Hill Road. Applicant seeks a finding under General Law, Chapter 40, Section 6, to allow for the reconstruction with additions of an existing non-conforming dwelling. Proposed project does not result in any new non-conformities. What do I have for 20 Ridge Hill Road? Name and address for the record.
Good evening, my name is Mark Taccio. I'm an attorney at DTM Law. I'm here with the owners of 20 Ridge Hill, Emma Lawson and Jeff Lawson. A little bit about the proposed project. So the property is an existing single-family home. It's in the R2 zoning district. It is pre-existing non-conforming with respect to the front yard setback. The Lawsons propose to raise and reconstruct within the existing footprint and to put an addition onto the house. The addition will be conforming with respect to all zoning setbacks. We consulted a bit with Mr. Vogel and determined this was the proper path under section 810-2C to raise and reconstruct. Again, it will reduce the existing front setback nonconformity slightly, but we know new nonconformities. And we request a special permit and finding under section 6 that it will not be substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood. If you have any questions, afterwards.
The addition is the part to the left. Drawing.
Yes, that's correct. The bold will be the resulting rebuilt home, and the cross stitch is what exists today. And the house was built in 1900, so again, it's existing, non-conforming since the figures.
Any questions from the board?
No.
Bob?
No, nothing really. We did speak about some of the aspects of this project. It's fairly ambitious and usual, and I don't believe it increases any non-conformities, doesn't create any new ones. I can't imagine it would be more detrimental.
Anybody in the audience? Anybody online for Ridge Hill Road?
Nobody online, Mr. Karsha.
Thank you, sir. I'll entertain a motion.
I make a motion on the seventh application of Jeffrey and Emma Lawson of 20 Ridge Hill Road, Scituate, seeks a finding under General Law, Chapter 48, Section 6, to allow for the reconstruction with additions of an existing non-conforming dwelling per the plan of Land Survey Company LLC dated May 20, 2025. And such raise and rebuild does not create any new nonconformities, and to the extent that it testifies that the existing nonconformity, such justification is not substantially more detrimental.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Thank you. I'd be happy to draft this decision.
Excellent, thank you.
Thank you.
Are you guys Scituate Lawsons or just another
We
Lawson?
get that so many. It depends on how far back you have to look. We did like 28 years ago, 29, and love it, so thank you.
Thank you. Would you guys give us 5 minutes? Sure. Not so much a recess, but if you guys need 5 minutes, take 5 minutes. If I might be there. You can come out and sit. You really cut down all those trees. Did you find anything cool? So my father built the house furthest back.
Right, 1985.
Yep.
Yeah, nothing significant there, but just kind of pondered why I got into disrepair. You know, in 1985 house, you know, it seemed like someone walked away from it.
I wanted to bring it down there and just, that's the one.
Yeah.
For a second. Yeah.
Oh, no, I thought you were bringing up the old.
Oh, no, I don't have that.
The original person.
You guys have Well, if Eric gets back, then I'll hit it. Taking the patience, but
No, you guys are really efficient. Impressive.
You guys, when I saw 7 things on the, I said, we're gonna get on at 10 o'clock, we better get here at 7:30 to be safe. You guys flew, so kudos.
August or September, yeah, we're almost 10 p.m. that day.
Yeah.
one thing is the one that many of us, but that was the club.
Helps having a small room, you limit how many angry butters you can fit in.
I still think we should vote it. Everything in person. Well, it was for the. I mean, I think we should be able to be prepared just for quorum purposes, but other ones.
Eric, you ready? All right. This is just additional businesses. The cottages at Old Oak and Bucket are proposing some changes. Tonight's meeting is to determine whether these changes are substantial or insubstantial. Go ahead and tell us what you do.
Okay, thank you very much, Chairman Carchi. I hope I pronounced that correctly. My name is Rob D'Ambroso. I'm a lawyer in Plymouth, D'Ambroso Law. I've got Eric Pontiff with me. He's the principal of the LLC that owns the site here, 279, 281 Old Oak and Bucket, which is now known as the Cottages. I've got Kevin Flaherty of the engineering firm Flaherty and Stefani with us on Zoom in case there's any technical questions. I hope not, as you pointed out, Mr. Chairman, we're here in the hopes that you will deem these changes to be insubstantial as the state regs kind of define it. They give some factors and so forth, and then we can go about our business. So first of all, good to meet everyone. I think that you may have been the only person on this board in 2023. Okay, right. So there's been some turnover since this permit was approved. And Eric, thank you for being so helpful to me also when I spoke with Eric DiTomaso. Glad to be here. And again, Eric's now the comprehensive permit holder. It was transferred, approved by EOHLC. Obviously, he's owned the property since the springtime. And now he's had a chance to get in on the ground and take a look at the plans that were presented to this board by his predecessor. In interest, he's sort of identified some ways to improve it. Again, I think that they're minor. The key factors that the state looks at for whether something's substantial or insubstantial are things like bedroom count, floor area, density, et cetera. Again, none of those things are being affected. This is really, some changes are landscaping related, others are really to make the flow of the houses themselves better, and then to improve some kind of grading, and replace a retaining wall, split rail fence in 2 locations, then beef up a retaining wall with some riprap in another location. So again, a little bit of site work to improve things, and then some things to improve sort of the layout of a handful of these homes. So I'd be happy to run you through a summary. I know you only got our memo yesterday, so you may not have had a chance to read it. I tried to keep it short because I think this is relatively innocuous, but if you'd like, I can spend a few minutes and kind of describe the changes, if that's helpful.
Go through an overview. You don't have to go into too much detail.
Yeah.
We got the letter. The letter was good.
Yeah.
But give us an overview. I think just for anybody that may be watching.
Sure, yeah, so 8 of the units are gonna be reoriented in some way, shape, or form. The 2 of them closest to the street, the existing street, are gonna be rotated so that their backyard is not facing that major roadway, the existing public roadway. Right, Eric?
Oh, the opposite,
Sorry.
so, as approved, it showed front doors towards Old Oak and Bucket, driveways to a common drive and back. And if you've driven by there, we tried to maintain as much existing vegetation that was in place in that area. And we provided a supplementary landscaping plan, which we're going to enhance that buffer. But what we'd like to do is both access the front door and the garage off of the common driveway and be able to fully screen that backyard in. That's both beneficial for the homeowner as well as any passersby on Old Oak and Bucket. The unit size being 2,000 square feet, if we start to split the houses, we end up with a really difficult flow within the house. So we have front door on one end, garage on the other. It and you have almost only, 1,000 square feet on the first floor, it gets difficult to work that out. So in their initial approval, I don't know if it was an oversight or, just something that went by the wayside, but they didn't actually have an architectural design that fit the bill for what they were showing on the site plan. So what we've done is and I have copies of our updated architecturals, which is the same as what's approved, but just updated. We have what we call a left garage and a right garage, and all of the 24 homes on the site will be of this nature. So we won't have any oddballs where a garage is coming into the side of the house, coming into the back of the house.
So, yeah, well said. And again, in some cases, the garage is being moved from one side of the house to the other to reduce the pitch of the driveway. So, the Graceway, the roadway obviously has a bit of pitch to it. So by simply shifting the location of the garage on some of those houses, there will be a less steep driveway. So again, to me, that's a pretty innocuous change. Eric described what's going on with the houses on Old Oak and Bucket. And again, reorienting the driveway for units 2 and 8 there, you can see those previously had their driveways coming directly, coming off of that spur, but now they're going directly off of Graceway, which is kind of a more logical sort of front of the house layout. So again, nothing really dramatic, more, I guess I call them stylistic changes. The houses themselves, aren't changing square footage, bedroom count, anything like that. And then the last thing, is again, really grade related, I guess that now that Eric and his engineer really had a chance to dig into it, they determined that they can eliminate some of these retaining walls, which I think will require less fill, right? And a split rail fence, which I think that'll please the Conservation Commission as well. And I know they're going to want to take a look at this in their capacity. But again, those are, I would call them insubstantial because they don't meet any of these so-called substantial criteria in the CMR. Happy to go ahead, Eric.
So, units 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, and 27, if you think about Graceway as being like a +10 elevation, and then, the surrounding woodlands at the edge of clearing being -10 in terms of elevation. The original design had a structural retaining wall that ran all along that wetland, and the houses weren't walkout style. So what we're proposing is to do walkout style, the change in elevation will happen on the side yards of the houses, and the backyard will be, equal and pitched towards the wood line, rather than having this big structural wall on that wood line. We proposed a split rail fence, and that's mainly related to Conservation Commission because we want to maintain that delineation for conservation jurisdictional lands and what we'll call, yard area for the homeowners. So where the wall provided that before, the split rail fence will now provide that, barrier. But we think the grading is more preferential like this, less structural items within the conservation buffer, and it reduces the amount of fill that needed to be hauled into the site. So one of the pages that was approved in the original plan shows 32,000 yards of fill coming in, which is an extremely significant amount. That's a lot of truck trips. They did an analysis on that sheet on how many truck trips it is. But by eliminating this wall and going to the walkout, we're able to reduce all of that filling in the backyard, which we think is advantageous for everybody in the neighborhood to not have that fill, be less detrimental to the surrounding lands, and more beneficial for the homeowner in that home to have a walkout rather than, a wall that drops off into the woods. Other than that, that pretty much sums up the items that we're doing. So nothing changed down to a square foot in terms of the area of the footprints. They're all the same as they were. We're just, theoretically reorienting. So.
Thank you. So, like you said, Justin and I were here for the entire process, right from the beginning. When this project first came to the zoning board, the chair at the time, made sure that we did this as a non-aggressive, we wanted to be cooperative with the developer. Instead of, saying, hey, no, we're not gonna do this. So we worked together and, we came up, there was a bunch of, you've done 40Bs, I'm sure. There were a lot of meetings. We talked about design. We talked about which way the houses were facing. We talked about the grade and things like that. These were all details that we discussed in a lot of meetings with a lot of public comment. One of the things in general, it was one of the very first things that came up. Those two houses on Old Oak and Bucket, which way they faced. We intentionally faced those and had them, appear the way that they did so that they fit in with the character of the neighborhood of Old Oak and Bucket Road. So you're not looking at the back of somebody's house. So you're not, so they're part of the neighborhood. And again, this is all with public comment and everybody, there were people in the room, discussing this. Flipping the layout of there was quite a few houses that you're actually flipping, changing the design. Again, it was a design that was part of a project that was, born of a process. And to come in now and change all of those decisions without public input, I think is shorting the, let us do the process. I think we need the process. I think there should be public notice and public input. It sounds simple enough, as far as the flips go, you should be able to explain it. It should be minor enough. But I think they're substantial enough where there needs to be more discussion. As far as the conservation of the grading, the last I heard, there's Eric help me with it's not a simple change. They need a change in their
Yeah, it's on my law would be
an amendment, which requires more detailed analysis. Again, I think, in the way she explained it, all the grading, all the drainage and everything, was based on the original with flat and no walkouts. So I think she wants more detail on that. So I am recommending that the board see this as a substantial modification, but I will take comments from the board.
Yeah, I wasn't here for that part of it, I wasn't here for that part of the process, so I think especially if these were just were discussed changes, or if these were discussed elements.
Thoughts?
Yeah, can I hear you with just or I defer, but I don't disagree with any of your logic or analysis of how you got to that this is substantial.
Justin?
I would agree with what you said, having been involved.
Matt?
It's a big enough project, and it seems like there was enough public comment that it should be notified at least.
How long did that process play out?
Would the focus would obviously be on this too, these conditions.
Exactly, when when this gets notified, we would be able to say, this is a project that's already been approved.
Right.
It's not going anywhere, we're changing some details. How long did that project play out? At least 3 or 4 months.
Several meetings.
Yeah.
Several meetings.
There were
Back and forth.
They were off schedule meetings, so you were meeting twice.
Oh.
I guess my question would be, if we deem this to be substantial, have to come back for a meeting, is it gonna be a finding, or is it essentially an alteration of special permit? Is it 2-1, or is it a 3-0? Just so the applicant knows what they're.
I think isn't that a legal determination?
I think so, but I think that's something that we probably need clarification on. Not that I'm saying that there would be
We can ask, council
Yeah.
exactly what we're,
Yeah.
how we're expecting to vote.
Right.
Again, I think it's more of doing the process than anything else.
What would the, like, play out the pathways for it? So you take it back, they say, we wanna flip the houses, and we say, no, stick with the original plan.
They can feel.
They could appeal,
Yeah.
sure, but then they would have to redesign, but they would have to amend their plan.
So going back to what I said first, when the original chair talked about, came into this, we said we're not coming into this non-confrontation.
Sure.
So, unless, if they came to us and said, we wanna do a bunch of, skyscrapers in there, we'll fight about this.
Exactly.
This isn't something that, again, is so crazy that it's gonna change the rules, but again, I think it needs to go beyond, I think there needs to be a more in-depth conversation about this.
Yeah, so, may I?
Go ahead.
Thank you, I appreciate the dialogue, and I think, Eric would like to sort of describe why he thinks the changes are worthwhile, and he anticipated maybe some of the comments, but just from a legal standpoint, I'd expect you to maybe consult with town council, but if you look at the CMR that talks about what the factors are, if I just run through them, it'll take me less than 2 minutes. This is 760 CMR 56, which is the comprehensive permit, mass reg. The following matters generally will be substantial changes, just to give you an idea of what's considered substantial. An increase of more than 10% in the height of buildings, an increase of more than 10% in the number of housing units, a reduction in the size of the site of more than 10% in excess of any decrease in the number of units, change in the type of building, for example, garden, apartments, townhouse, or change from one form of housing tenure to another. So again, that gives you an idea for what's substantial. And then it goes on, I'll be very brief, to give you examples of matters that generally will not be substantial. A reduction in the number of units, a decrease of less than 10% in the floor area, change in the number of bedrooms so long as it doesn't alter total bedroom count by more than 10%, change in the color or style of materials used, or change in the financing program. So again, we want this to be a cooperative process. We're not trying to diminish the board's authority, but to me, I really do think that if you look at the CMR, I don't think there's any way this board can properly construe this to be substantial. Because again, substantial is really unit count, types of units, height, it's things like that. These are much more style changes, I would call them. But I just want to get that out there.
And particularly, I think let's hone in on the ones that you said were most debated, which would be those 2 units facing the road. We want to come in here, we hired a landscape architect to do supplementary plantings. I expected that to be kind of the opposite opinion to switching the units around, would be what you'd see from the road. So, we want to work with the board, we want to do everything we can. But we just kind of differ a little bit on what's important there. And I'm not saying that you differ with what I'm saying, but I think what you're saying is the public should be notified. I don't know that we have the mechanism to go into that type of notification now.
I think something to consider on those plantings, if this moves forward, is there was a lot of discussions around and I think that looks great. But there was a lot of discussion about pulling in and out of this on the street, and there was concerns from neighbors, so while the plantings, I think I can appreciate what you're trying to do there, but I would be cognizant of that if we have to visit this and revisit this, just keep that in mind, I would say.
Right.
Any impacts that may have on traffic, pulling in and out of that development, which from what I gather is a pretty hectic area.
You mean sight lines?
Correct. And I'm not sure what you've proposed in heights or what size those are, but I'm sure there's an element of, creating some privacy and some separation. So just be cognizant that as you present that as, I'm going to say, a value add with this change, just be cognizant of the sight lines you might be creating as well.
And, if the board was so inclined, would it be an option to, if you were to find that you wanted to go to a future hearing on units 4 and 6, which those are,
I think it might have been the FAR unit. Is is that not changing, the other street
Well, on
facing
the other,
unit?
on the other corner,
That one's not changing.
That's remaining towards the.
Yeah.
Okay,
that's remaining more.
One keeps.
yeah, one maintains what was discussed in the previous meetings, and two being 6 and 4. So that's a 9, let me look at my golf bets.
If I could weigh in real quick too, if you just have a second, this is Kevin Flaherty from Flaherty and Stefani. It may seem like there's a significant number of changes per unit, but we really went through and looked at it from a construction standpoint, and we looked at the approved plans with the elevations that they had on the plans, and some of those elevations with where groundwater is located and determined by the applicant previously didn't really work with it. So all we did by flipping them is we moved the garage to the high side of the road coming down, which we typically do anyways, with the idea that you can keep the house a little bit higher if you hold it up on the higher side. So when we design most driveways, we high them on the high side to prevent kind of, so the garage slabs are higher up and the runoff can go kind of back towards the road correctly. When you put them on the low side, it becomes more of a grading challenge in a construction world. So it may seem like a lot of changes, but none of those houses have changed besides exactly mirroring them from left to right type deal, besides those 2 by the road.
I think the only, and I'm trying to follow what Kevin was saying there, I think really just my concerns and why I would argue it's substantial are the street facing units. And I do recall, being honest, talking about that retaining wall in that corner.
Yeah.
I don't remember specifically, but as you mentioned things, so I'm not.
The discussion about the retaining wall wasn't looking close to.
Correct, just the proximity
Yeah,
to
the
it,
proximity to one of the houses.
which arguably your new fence and regrading in the better proposed situation there.
The orientation of the houses, is again, one part of this. It's changing the grade of the site, that, the conservation department, conservation has concerns with, and, thinks there needs to be more review to this.
Right, yeah, we fully appreciate that, where we're jurisdictional Concom, they're gonna have the same scope of authority they had in 2020.
Right, exactly. Yes.
But again, I guess I would ask you to really consider the definition of substantial. It's not, it's not as subjective as I think it might be in some cases.
So on the grading, is that something that they still have to go to conservation regardless of what we decide here?
We're the permit granting authority, so it all filters through there, comes back to here.
Okay.
But Rob, if I'm correct, we would have to go through a public hearing though, right? The amended order of conditions would require a conservation public hearing. So neighbors would get to weigh in that aspect.
Correct.
On the grade.
On anything that's jurisdictional, removal of the retaining walls, the implementation of the split rail fences and the addition of that riprap.
So I guess my point would be that the neighbors are going to get to be able to put their input in on a project from a conservation standpoint, even if they can't in this minor modification, which I believe it meets. They still will get their chance to bring up any concerns at conservation.
Yeah, and for that matter, again, depending on how Concom construes its authority, I mean, we may even be jurisdictional, down here just based on the proximity of the house to the wetland, even though there's no real change there. Again, something they could arguably look at.
And again, I think we're making it a better, we're kind of making it a more efficient from a conservation side, like what Eric mentioned, less material coming in, less unnatural material coming in. So we're really working with the existing grade. So again, I think from that end, conservation will be okay with the project, since we are working kind of to make it a better project than what was previously approved.
Yeah, I mean, these comprehensive permits, of course, they're really creatures of state law, right? So they're not subject to the typical review process, things like aesthetics, things that you might be concerned with a cluster development or subdivision. Again, I don't think the board exercises the same level of review. So we're not trying to push you on anything, but, you know, again, I think there's a reason that the regs are written the way that they are. It's because, you know, the intention is, in the interest of affordable housing, not to make this a protracted, cumbersome process, you know.
The other option is that you build what was designed also and,
Sure.
you know, not change anything, you know, not have to go through this process.
Sure.
So, Bob, go ahead.
You may have gotten this, members of the board, as a reply or a forward, but this is from Deb Keller.
Yeah.
Merrill, the town's engineering consultant, reviewing the project. And I asked her, based on her experience, and she's had a lot of this with other 40B projects, point blank, would she consider this a minor modification or a substantial change? Her reply, good morning, Bob. From my experience working on other 40B projects, I would consider this a minor modification or insubstantial change under the comprehensive permit per 760 CMR 56.074, substantial changes to the project. Since the stormwater management system, including watershed areas, can be maintained other than shifting of the roof chamber systems around, and the limit of work is being maintained, there are no substantial infrastructure changes needed. I would recommend that the applicant clarify whether they are looking to remove the 5-foot sidewalk proposed along Old Oak Bucket. I don't recall if the Old Oak Bucket sidewalk improvement was something the board wanted or proposed with the orientation of the buildings towards the street, but it seems the sidewalk has been eliminated on the revised site plan. The removal of the retaining wall and replacement with split rail fence seems to be an improvement from a design perspective, but I would defer to Jen with respect to any conservation constraints that I'm not thinking of. So that's Deb's initial take on the situation.
Any further thoughts from the right side of the table?
This is the thing about being a cross-eyed judicial warrant, right? It seems like the lawyers have like a pretty good argument, and like it seems substantial to me, right? To flip the direction the house's face, right?
Right.
Like if I flip the direction my house face, it's representative of a significant change.
And that, if I'm understanding the email you just read, Bob, that was more geared toward the revisions to the site.
Well, Deb's concerns obviously are engineering and site design and drainage and various things like that.
And I don't remember some of the words you read, but I think if you were to summarize that, you might say architectural changes. I think there was something in there about material changes. It didn't explicitly state orientation, but at what point could you argue it's an architectural change that, to Heath's point, becomes substantial? Whether or not there's gonna be concerns, I think Chris's point, there were concerns several months back about the orientation of those houses.
Yeah, and again, I don't mean to downplay the town or the butters or anyone's concerns or opinions about the project. I guess all I'm telling you, and I'm trying to do it respectfully, is that as far as the state is concerned, those aren't substantial, right? The state is telling you, look, what's substantial is unit count, height, bedroom count, density, the size, the acreage, the area of the overall site. Those are, and again, only in some cases they're substantial, more than 10%, right? So you could even shrink the size of some of these units, change the footprint of them, and that would be really bright line, black and white, insubstantial under the CMR. So my point is the state has a very different criteria. And look, frankly, that's why towns, I sit on the board in my town, towns don't like 40B because it takes away a lot of the discretion at the local level. I mean, the state really dictates to you, and then, as you know, when there's a loggerhead, and again, I can't imagine what happened in this situation, but the developer goes to the Housing Appeals Committee and says, hey, the town's micromanaging me and 9 times out of 10, HAC says, yeah, can't do it, Tom. So again, it's just, I understand that, your opinion is, well, the way a house faces seems significant. And of course it would be if my house turned 90 degrees, I had a heart attack if I came home. So I turned face the other way. That's substantial as a layperson. It's just not substantial to the state. And again, I think that's clear.
You're technically, yes, technically you are correct. Those two houses on Old Oaken Bucket were a major point of discussion. And now you're saying, hey, I know you guys discussed it and you agreed on doing this, but we're gonna change it back. Again, I want to be cooperative about this. Again, this was designed, by engineers and architects and designers and all of that. They went through all of this stuff, They didn't, suddenly invent, how to orient houses or whatnot, They drew it that way and it worked. As a builder, you can make it work. It was a major point, it was a major topic. I want to work, I want to be cooperative. And that's what I'm looking for here. Either, keep it the way it was, or at least allow some public input and say, here's what we want to do.
So I guess let's play this out. Let's say that we have a hearing 2 weeks from today.
Yeah.
The public comes, and the public, again, I don't know why people would have much of a vested interest, but maybe they do, and they say, yeah, we prefer it the other way. I guess we really be looking for a compelling rationale. I don't know, I'm not sure how to verbalize this for you.
What can we do?
Yeah, they're gonna be the.
It's Eric's site.
Yeah.
It's Eric's site. He's got to build these, he's got to market them, he's got to sell them, he's got to make them as livable and desirable as possible. So that's ultimately going to trump, again, he wouldn't do anything egregious. Eric, has a reputation. He's not here to bully anyone or do something obnoxious, paint them fuchsia, which he could, that's insubstantial. He wants it to be nice. And again, the intention is to make this a desirable neighborhood that people are going to like to live in. So ultimately, again,
Open it back up.
I just can't imagine what the neighbors would
do.
Yeah, how's it gonna play out?
The metal screen and whatnot.
Correct.
And they don't come back and say the zoning board just can't do 40B instead of giving us, our
So we're
say.
making an informed decision saying because our hands are tied.
Because our hands are tied, we can't do 40B.
Should make it known. So we're hoping, the intention was to come here with a landscape plan, which we would consider an added bonus or a concession that makes the change palatable and logical along the linear path to say, now that it's fully screened, there's existing vegetation left on the site, the concern isn't significant that the front doors face Old Oaken Bucket. I think if you were to take that path, that's the path you would be taking.
I think what drove it was maintaining, from what I'm not,
The character and.
all the houses on Old Oaken are street facing.
Right.
So that's what to maintain, yes. I think their previous dwellings there that were once front facing, were some dwellings demoed at the street.
There was a 2-family there.
Yeah, there was
Two-family,
a big.
which was front facing.
That was semi.
So I guess I would consider it substantial, personally, not based on law or anything. I understand your points, but at the same token, sure, time is of the essence here.
And we are going to be going through the public hearing with the conservation.
Correct, which will address any of the drainage. So really, if we are to.
And, I would take Deb's, as far as the drainage is concerned, again, conservation has said that there is, more detail that needs to be fleshed out because of these grade changes.
Okay.
Between what Deb says here and what they want across the hall, yes, you need to be there, for an amendment. He's on conservation.
Oh, there you go. Okay.
He fills in the blanks for me. Uh, Like I said, it's a, fill in the room with a bunch of people so they can yell and scream, so, we don't have to feel the wrath of, the community saying, you guys can't get to the 40 feet, we approve.
Well, I don't think you cave, I think it's a question of properly interpreting your discretion, right? I mean, it's like, Concom, if someone says, look, I don't like the color of that structure, well, that's not a conservation issue, orientation of a house is not a comprehensive permit.
Like I said, the other thing you could have done is come in and build it exactly as it was designed and.
Sure.
And if,
Yeah, so what's unique about that is they never had architectural plans that were of those designs. That's what was concerning.
I have a full set.
Not that were fully thought out with the stuff, front door, back. So I think I look at it like, when it's in that scenario, what does someone say their backyard is?
For those houses, it's that area off of the common driveway is the backyard.
Right. I would ask the question too, if we were able to continue this to a public meeting, understanding everything you said here about substantial versus insubstantial, and how much we can actually dictate this. Are you guys opposed to going to that additional meeting, getting input from the neighbors, which is gonna allow you, because you can do this, find common ground with some of that landscaping, address their sight lines, and do this in a more amicable, open discussion?
Then he's gonna go to the state and they're gonna say, whatever you wanna do.
Correct, no, understood, but I'm saying, like, you could be a good developer and say, hey, we don't need to be here.
Right.
But we're here because we wanna, to make you guys aware of the changes, why we changed them.
And Eric wants to be a good developer, he doesn't want to be out to the town right off the jump and have the building inspector, oh geez, this guy's a tough customer, we don't. So again, maybe here's a suggestion.
But I think that's what we're here, we're hopefully being amicable and understanding, you provide more background than I've heard. Is there anything else that we could do with this board that would be a conciliation or help with this? Because I think my concern is that if we do open that public hearing up, there could be more blood drawn than need to be.
Right, now it's an opportunity for anyone.
It's
an opportunity, anyone who didn't like the project now has a platform again, right? Which.
And I know it will be.
Of course.
I can't imagine that landscape not coming, but again, you're entitled.
So
Does that get into, just from the drawing, I'm looking where does that get into the sight lines and the traffic studies and everything, that was involved there, as far as those plantings along the road?
Yeah, and I think Kevin Flaherty could speak to it, but the intention was that, we didn't change any of the site distances and kept the landscaping back there. Kevin's listening.
Yeah, no, I was just looking at the plan real quick. So with the way the road, if you can kind of see where my cursor is, bows into where the entrance is, I think this was specifically picked for the entrance because it provides this sight line across this way. So all these plantings that we're showing on the plan are inside of our lot, not within the layout. So I think that whatever site distances were there before are unchanged based off with these plantings here. And again, by pulling the houses the other way, we actually gained some separation from the layout. So we could even kick those plantings in more. So on unit 4, on this one right here, the closest point from the previous design was 25.6 to the street layout. For the new proposed is 32.3. So we gained about 7 feet there. And then for 6, we went from 30.9 to 36.7. So it's another 6 feet there. So I think, in the zone, those would be conforming, I think, is the 30-foot front setback. But again, if there were any those plantings within sight distances or sight lines from before, we have the room to kick them in a little bit more towards the proposed houses.
And I'll offer one other thing apart from the technical sightline discussion. In good faith, if anyone, butters included, wants to use the conservation proceeding as an opportunity to weigh in on landscape preferences, Eric will entertain in good faith. I mean, you got my word. I know you don't know me, it's my first time before the board, but you know, he's not gonna try to save a buck by doing an arborvitae instead of whatever, you know. So if someone on the Conservation Commission or staff or through you informally wants to put something in front of us that they think helps, again, that's not something we're gonna push back on. You know, we're willing to kind of utilize that. Again, this is not because we're trying to cut anyone out of the process, but it's really, I think what Mr. Mark said, like, you know, we open up a public hearing on an approved 40B for insubstantial changes. It just becomes, I don't know what to expect. I wasn't here in 2023.
What are the thoughts on the plantings? So we are gonna be looking at the backs of houses now, and did I see a rendering? Of what it looked like?
I think there was an image on something. Or some sample picture.
Yeah, what face of this is gonna be fixed? Is that what I'm seeing in the photos?
No.
So if I'm driving down Old Oaken Bucket, that's kind of what I'm seeing.
Where the bulkhead is, that elevation?
Bulkhead at the
Bottom,
side.
yeah.
That's the side. So the rear is where the two awnings are and that rear.
Yeah. What are you thinking for plantings, just like tall arborvitaes or?
You wanna put that planting plan back up, Kevin?
You can see the house.
So I mean, we have a lot of existing trees there that are, you know, equal to the height of the structure.
Yeah.
I think what needed to be filled in there was what we'll call like the mid canopy and the lower. So, you know, we have, you know, the 6-foot juniper, red cedar, arborvitae, and then we're also doing inkberry and rhododendron lower. So, you know, my intention when I went to landscape architect was evergreens were gonna give us the most value for both the homeowner and the street side. So we wanted to fill that, what we'll call the mid gap. The higher canopy, if you drive by there, is pretty much intact and in good shape. I mean, one of the things, you know, that is interesting about this project, in order for the numbers to be profitable and it to be a viable project, is that there is kind of a wide range from the affordable at 345,000 to, you know, a market rate here could be, you know, $1.2 million, right? So it's the same house. But for someone to buy at $1.2 million, this has to be really nice. Like I have to do a really good job. So, you know, concerns about landscaping, and just the general overall appearance is very important to us. You know, finishes are very important. You know, it's all AZEK trim. We're doing cedar dip shingles. You know, it's all Anderson windows. You know, we really need to do a really good job. Something that I'm proud of, and I'm hopefully, you know, the town is proud of in the end. So landscaping is an important aspect. You know, we don't want to shortchange. You know, it's not like we're building a straight wall towards Oaken Bucket.
And that's what I was just gonna say, this isn't the back of a slab, you know, the garrison.
Or back of a colonial straight across the back, right? So there's a whole bunch of different architectural features.
You know, with the landscaping you propose anyway, you wouldn't be able to see the front door regardless.
Correct.
The original layout you were able to.
But you could still put you could still.
You can still put the landscaping with that.
Right, but.
Correct.
So if you kept the original planned orientation, but still put that landscaping in, we're not seeing the front door.
Right.
We're not seeing the front door anyways, from Old Oaken Bucket.
Why would you do that if you're going to sell $1.2 million?
Understood, but in all reality, you know, the argument that, you know, everything on the Old Oaken Bucket has a front door facing, well, there's landscaping blocking it from the view anyways.
Yeah. Now, you know, I would go as far as to say you got an Amazon driver dropping a package off, stopping on Old Oaken Bucket, because the front doors.
Yeah.
Now he's pulling in the development and it becomes part of the other. And that's happening, I'm guessing.
That goes to the argument that I made about road width. You know, they want a narrow road. This came up in a discussion I heard about elsewhere, but parking for visitors and things like that, you know, ends up on the road. not a discussion figure,
But absolutely, you know, no one's,
uh,
and I think these discussions we're having, for me, alleviate your concerns about, you know, we're.
at least somebody can look
Posing
back and say.
concerns, we're having we're having a discussion.
I think it's a very healthy discussion about that.
Yeah, totally, so
Yeah, it does seem.
I'm comfortable calling the orientation not substantial. You know, as far as the drainage and whatnot, I guess, you know, I want the input, whatever input she needs, you know, to get satisfaction, you know, as long as she's happy, we're happy.
Yeah, I don't think there's any way around, I don't think there's any way around that for either of us, you know, Concom is gonna run it through their process, they may even have a peer review, you know. Again, I think they're all improvements from a Concom, but we're not fearful of it, but
It sounds like it, yes.
But again, it's gonna be a process regardless of
Yeah.
what you determine.
So do we determine it substantial, but it still has to go to Concom, or is it substantial, but just have to go to Concom?
I think it's insubstantial, they still have to run their process through Concom, but that's Concom.
Correct. But insubstantial
But
as
it's
it
back-
relates to.
yeah.
Well, there's no motion, there's no funding, you don't have to find anything.
I think we just kind of make an informal, we find it, so.
We make a finding,
And you could ask your building commissioner again, I don't speak for Mr. Vogel, but I don't think he's gonna issue permits unless he's satisfied with conservation.
Right.
Yeah.
So again, that's a separate.
Any thoughts?
No, I think you're on the right track with this.
Matt?
I'm satisfied knowing that Concom will have their own process, they can open up the public comment. I was of the opinion that they were insubstantial in the beginning, but obviously I did the honest public comment significantly a couple of years ago, so I'm satisfied knowing that conservation locked down its own procedure now with the public.
Then I'll make a motion that the board finds, these changes to be insubstantial. Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Appreciate it,
Thank you, guys.
We won't
Thank you,
let down.
guys.
It's gonna be nice.
Any other business, Eric? You ready to, I have a hand raised, hang on.
Sure,
Mr.
we'll find out here.
O'Reilly.
Mr. and Miss O'Reilly, just, you should be able to unmute, just your name, address, go ahead with your comment.
Hi, it's Liz O'Reilly, 179 Maple Street.
Sorry, I didn't see you on the screen, I apologize.
That's okay. I just wanted to express my concern about the flipping of the two houses on Old Oakham Bucket. There was, as Chris said, there was an awful lot of discussion when the farmhouse was coming down and two houses were going in there. And agreements were made for frontage so that those two houses could be there. I feel that the road is a scenic road in the town, and by now having the backs of houses where no other house on Old Oakham Bucket has the back of their house on the street, that I think that they should remain the way that they were in the original plan. I also have concerns, as in your listing for the sale of the properties, that you're putting propane in. I have a major concern with a large propane tank in the backyard on Old Oakham Bucket. Is that, am I?
You're doing exposed to buried tanks. Buried or?
Eric.
Yeah, they're doing
There would have to
in-ground,
be any
in-ground tank,
requirements
yeah.
anyways, it would have to be.
I just think that they should be, the plan should stay as the original plan.
I think if you've been listening the whole time, I don't entirely disagree with you, but like you were saying, these are, even from the backside, they're fairly attractive. You know, if we get into a protracted, argument with this, we could lose more than we stand to gain.
I understand.
They're not unattractive from a roadside. With the plantings that they're proposing, I think it'll mitigate it. I can't off the top of my head think about the developments that we drive by that you see the backside, but I know there are some.
But it's on one of our scenic roads. And we had a lot of discussions about the plantings and the trees and everything
did.
else. And then we agreed to this with the two on the road.
Right.
The state's gonna.
But
make us
what
do
they-
it.
What we
State's
get
gonna
out of
make it
them,
around.
yeah.
The state is gonna make us do it.
What we get out of them originally, the original discussion was there were driveways coming onto Old Oaken
Right.
Bucket that we got rid of.
Right.
They're maintaining that, they're just flipping the house also. I think it's not a win, I'll call it a tie for now.
And there were a lot of concessions
Yeah.
made from the original developer as part of the quantity, if you recall.
Right.
So,
Yeah. And I've been involved in this, as you know, Chris, from the beginning.
Yes.
I've been here for all the discussions on the properties and seen it change and get better for the town. I just feel that they should stay with the frontage on Old Oaken Bucket, a scenic road in the town. That's
I
just my
don't-
opinion.
I don't disagree, but I think this is as good a compromise as we can get right now.
Mm-hmm.
it's not something we can enforce.
Yeah.
At the end of the day.
Right.
Okay. I just
thank
wanted,
you.
yeah, I just wanted to make my concern.
I appreciate it, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
And with that,
I make a motion to close the meeting.
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.